Welcome to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Steve Mantis, and my guest today is Chief of Police for the Thunder Bay Police Force, Sylvie Hauth. Welcome, Sylvie.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So let's just start a little bit with your background. Did you grow up in Thunder Bay? Tell us a little bit about before you became chief.
Well, I'm born and raised in Iroquois Falls. People that don't know where that is.
Good northerner.
Yes, so I'm very familiar with the winters. Nothing's changed. Born and raised there. Iroquois Falls is just north of Timmins, if people need a kind of a bit of a context. I moved from Iroquois Falls when I was in grade 7. I moved to Sudbury, so lived in Sudbury for many years, did some of my university there. Then Ottawa, did some university there, finished my master's degree at the University of Ottawa.
What did you do your master's in?
Criminology.
Okay.
Yeah, I did an undergrad actually at the time at the Laurentian in Law and Justice. And at the time I was going to be a lawyer. And finished my courses and went, oh, I don't think this is for me. And then still wanted to keep going, still wasn't too sure. So I looked at criminology, finished my master's, and then ended up moving here to Thunder Bay. I started in corrections here actually in Thunder Bay. And then shortly thereafter, Thunder Bay Police was hiring. And the rest is history. I've been here since 1991, and I've been on the force now for 26 years.
Great.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about those early days. What did it feel like being you became a constable, is that the term?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know if you saw when I got sworn in, I kind of made the comment that it was interesting because when I started, I was a cadet. So it was even before I started on the front desk. And I had made a few comments at the time. It was kind of funny. People were asking me, oh, you know, you're new on the job, and you get a little bit of ribbing. And I told them, I said, I'm going to be the chief someday. And everybody laughed and said, oh, yeah, whatever. What is she talking about? And anyway, so I reminded people way back 26 years ago of the comment. And lo and behold, on the day of my swearing in, it was like, all right, here we are today. And it came to fruition. So, yeah.
Which is totally great. And,
yeah.
you know, we see women in more and more leadership roles in our society. And it's really great to see you in the chair there, or the chief of the police force.
Yeah, no, things have evolved, obviously. I mean, you're asking me how it was initially. I mean, I was, you know, there wasn't very many women in policing going back even 26 years ago. Things are obviously changing, but it's been an interesting journey, I can say that. We are still obviously looking always for women in terms of policing. Not everybody still wants to look at the career, not even as a male or female ratio, you know, visible minorities. It's really important for us, I think, now more so than ever to put ourselves out there. People need to be able to see themselves and you know, as an officer and saying, yeah, you know what, I've never considered it, but I think that's something I'd like to do.
So give me some numbers around the Thunder Bay Police. Like, how many staff do you have? You know, what are we looking at?
So our service right now, we're at 219 sworn officers, and we have 102 civilian positions. So civilian is anything from our comm operators, people who answer 911, who dispatch, records clerk, you know, a lot of our support staff in terms of budget and finance, human resources, and then 219 in terms of sworn.
And how does it break down men and women?
A lot of right now our ratio is approximately from our sworn complement. I think we have roughly 35 women on the force out of the 200.
So it's about 15%, something like that. So
still room for improvement.
And how does it look in the support roles?
It's the reverse. A lot of, when you look at dispatching, a lot of our records clerk, a lot of our female position, or have females in those positions. So it's almost the reverse on the civilian side where we don't have as many males actually, or visible minorities as well. We ended up doing a survey last fall within our service, and it was really to look at the demographics of our service. Mm-hmm. The survey went out to all our staff, and we wanted to kind of take stock. Where are we right now? What does it look like? So that was for us a good starting point. So with that information now, we see kind of where, you know, our shortfalls are, where we need to concentrate on and go from there.
So where are the areas you need to reach out to involve more folks from that group? Women, you mentioned?
Yeah, I think visible minorities as well. We are a diverse community. We have a lot of people that are here in Thunder Bay for school purposes, people that, you know, for immigration are coming to our city. We have a very big Indigenous population as well. So I think it's important for us to really start showcasing a different side of policing so that people can see themselves within the job and say, you know, I've never considered it, but it's definitely something that we need to look at.
I know a number of our public institutions strive to reflect the community more broadly. As an advocate for people with disabilities, do you think about that angle as well? Do you ask people to identify or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is an opportunity. There's certain criteria, obviously, within the policing job that need to be met in terms of, being able to do the required work. But as I said, we have a very big civilian complement, and there's definitely areas within our service that would be able to include people that have visible minorities or visible challenges or disabilities, for sure.
So you've got 219 sworn officers. How does that break down in terms of their job duties? I mean, in a way, we see police a lot on the road. Sometimes we think about they're looking at traffic violations and stuff, but I don't really know what they're doing.
Right. So, yeah, well, the Police Services Act kind of makes a certain criteria that we have to have in place, meaning that, you have to have a criminal investigation branch. There's certain aspects that are kind of mandatory that we need to break down. So for us as a service right now, we have 5 branches kind of overseeing the whole of the service. And within each of those branches, then there's specialty units. So if you take, for example, the criminal investigation branch, so that's kind of your detectives, people that do the serious offenses that are looking at homicides, sexual assaults, missing persons. We have other officers that look specifically or work with the elderly. Anything that has to do with, we have an aging population, so it's important to have people that can identify and really work with areas that pertain specifically to the elderly. It's not the same challenge.
I'm kind of going, how does policing fit with elderly? I don't know.
Well, look at for frauds, for example. Sometimes elderly are more susceptible to easy scams, not knowing that, it sounds really good and they think that it's a good deal, not realizing that people are preying on the fact that they may not understand the contract or may not understand the deal. Those are the types of things. You're also looking at abuse. A lot of people forget that people sometimes in their older age, when some of their capacities are not 100%, people take advantage, whether that's even staff members within institutions or even family members who may prey on the fact that, uncle doesn't really remember, so he won't miss the $1,000 in his account. So it's those things that we want to ensure that older people are protected and have those services available that are specific to police. And
so I interrupted you. So there's 5 branches, and we've covered 2 so far. What are the other 3?
Well, we have general patrol. So everybody that you see day in, day out, those are uniformed patrol officers. They're divided into 4 units, and basically they work shift work. They answer calls for service, and they're dispatched. You call 911, you need the police. Those are uniformed officers. We have a court and record section, so all the files and everything that needs to go to court. We have people that prepare all the dockets, all the charges, run people, the paperwork, and then records basically transcribes all the reports. We have a professional standards branch, which is complaints, policies, and then we have community services. And community services has, for example, our beat officers, our school resource officers. We also have the traffic unit. There's lots more, but kind of gives you a sense that we're kind of diversified, and you're kind of divvying up 219 in quite a few areas actually to be successful and really touch upon everything. Cybercrime unit is a new unit in the last couple of years. They look after all the child pornography, for example.
We need to take a short break.
Sure.
Please stay with us and we'll find out more about the Thunder Bay Police Force. Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Steve Mantis, and my guest today is the Chief of the Thunder Bay Police, Sylvie Hauth. Welcome back, Sylvie.
Thank you.
So we just heard a little bit about how that 219 officers get broken up. We talked about kind of, I don't know if it was community service, I forget the term.
Community services branch.
Community service. So we talked a little bit before the show too around your feeling of kind of building partnerships and relationships with other groups in the city. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you're doing in that area now?
I mean, it's interesting. So before becoming the chief and the deputy, I had quite a few years in community services as the inspector. So I was overseeing that branch. And I think being in that role really gave me a good opportunity to work, like I said, on those partnerships and building those partnerships within our community. Got to work with a lot of agencies and really showcasing to people that in order to be successful, in order to be productive and making meaningful changes within our community, it was important for us as a service to really work with those agencies. We can't do this alone. When you look at a police service, you know that you call us when you're in need, you call us when something's not working right. We want to be kind of ahead of the curveball. Is how can we work with you so that before it becomes a problem, before you have to call the police, is what do we do together to make a difference ahead of time and kind of changing that conversation.
So what can the police do to support that healthy community that is not about enforcement?
Well, it's important for us to be at the table. I often get sometimes from my officers even saying, why are we going to these meetings?
Jeez, I've said that at times.
Yeah, no, but it's true. I mean, it's changing that mindset. Why are we there? Why do we need to be there? And it's changing the mindset to say it's important because we have a voice at the table, we have a different perspective, and I think it's important to have that approach when you're dealing with whatever situation. I mean, I'll give you an example that we've been working on for a few years. Mental health. Within our community, we have many, many calls for service that come through the police in terms of people that are in crisis and that are reaching out. I can tell you that it's not always probably the best approach to having a police officer. We're not trained professionals in terms of being psychologists or, and there's only so much we can do with the authorities that we have. So often it means apprehending somebody and taking them to the hospital, which it may not always be the best solution for that person at the time. So we've been working, for example, with the CMHA here in Thunder Bay, the Canadian Mental Health Association. And what we have right now is a pilot project, and we have crisis workers that attend those calls with us. So it's very much more client-centered.
So in terms of the dynamics, so you get a call from 911. Yes. Do you then call someone from CMHA that says, meet us at...
Yes. So they have their workers on call. We say, we're going to 123 Main. Here's quickly what's going on. They meet us there. We enter, if it's safe to do so, we enter the residence together. And I think that approach has been more beneficial. Oftentimes the police can be, I don't want to say called off, but say, you know what, we've got this. You guys can go back to what you need to do, and we can deal with the situation. It offers, I think, better services for the person that's currently in crisis, and it's a totally different approach.
And how long has that pilot been working? We
just started last June, and it was for 1 year, so we're coming up already to the 1 year mark. I can tell you that the numbers have been phenomenal in terms of, the impact that it has. We've had a lot less people taken to the emergency in terms of, the police, saying, okay, we have to take you in. And our resources are better utilized because we're not sitting at emerge for, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. We're able to sometimes divert. Or CMHA through their crisis workers can look at the situation from a totally different angle, different resources, and deal with the situation.
So do you have enough data to do some analysis in terms of how much you're saving or the outcomes for the people who are in crisis?
We're currently doing that. I mean, we have numbers right now in terms of the calls that we've taken, the diversions that we've done from emerge, and kind of the time spent when we are at emerge. We've been able to show that, for example, if they want us to make sure, this is funding through the LIND, and some of their criteria was that they were hoping that we would hit, roughly 300 calls, within the time of the project. I think we've surpassed it 3 times over.
Oh my gosh, so it's
at
like
least
3
double,
a day or 4 a day.
So we've been fairly busy. I think Crisis as well through CMHA has looked at it and went, wow, way busier than we thought. So definitely a need, and we're hoping that the project will be able to continue with full-time funding. So.
And so that's funding that's coming from the LIN, that's external, which of course the LIN might be disappearing.
Yes, so this is external funding, but that strictly goes through CMHA because
okay.
it's funding for their workers. So it has no impact in terms of our budget, but it has huge impact on our resources.
And how's that received by the frontline officers?
Lots of positive feedback. They see it as very beneficial. I mean, for them, it's an additional, we have lots of tools on our tool belt to deal with, a variety of situations. I think for them, it's very beneficial to have that extra experience. It comes within a situation with that expertise, really. We only get so much at police college. You have to learn your criminal code, you have to learn all of your provincial offenses. Mental Health Act happens to be, one little portion, and you learn de-escalation techniques. Again, they come with a totally different mindset and a totally different skill set, so a very beneficial partnership.
So within your own budget, do you have the opportunity to fund some of these examples that reduce the demand, really, for your services, that allow you to do other things, that in a way has a cheaper alternative?
Well, we have to get creative. What most people don't know is out of my operational budget, about 92% of that budget is wages and benefits. So it doesn't leave much in terms of kind of everything else we need to do. For us to be effective, I think what we've done the most is reach out when we want to do community outreach. So for example, one of the recommendations from the inquest was to ensure that we were doing grade 8 community visits. We partnered with NAPS, and we said,
NAPS is?
Anishinaabe Police Service.
Okay.
And we asked them, you go to your communities on a regular basis, whether it be for court, for your officers, is there a way that we can partner so that when you're going, we can go as well? I don't have the resources, for example, to pay for flights. It's very expensive, and for us to do so regularly is very costly. So those are the types of things that we try to maximize and say, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, how can we work together? And we've done that on a number of fronts, not only with them, but with some of the educational councils, and working very closely with Matawa Learning Center, working with Dennis Franklin Community High School, and kind of sharing resources towards the same goal.
So I want to ask you a little bit, in a way, around the benefits piece. You mentioned the 92% is wages and benefits. And it seems to me that the job of a police person can be really challenging. You make a little mistake, like we saw, a police officer slap a woman that spit on her. It's a normal reaction, but we expect something above normal, in a way, of our police. What kind of support can you offer to your frontline officers to kind of meet that higher standard of what we expect?
Well, training is big. Obviously we want our officers to have the best training that we can in terms of giving them the tools that they need to do their job. But I think the flip side is what people forget is that behind every single uniform, including mine, is a human being. We're all brothers, sisters, mums and dads in this community. We have personal lives. We have personal challenges and difficulties. And we can't forget that there's a human face behind that officer. So we have to ensure that we provide them with not only the tools that they need to do their job, but we need to look after them. The job that they do is a tough job. You come to work every day not really knowing what to expect. There's always a different situation, and I can tell you that even after 26 years on the job, you get a call and you always think, oh, I've done that a million times, and you show up and go, I haven't seen that before.
We have to take another short break. Please stay with us. We'll be right back and find out a little bit more about the workings of the police department. Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Steve Mantis, and my guest today is the Chief of the Thunder Bay Police, Sylvie Hauth. Welcome back, Sylvie.
Thank you.
So we were just talking about, in a way, the training and the challenges of being a frontline officer. Mental health is really a growing concern in our community. It's always been there, but we're getting more of a light shining on it. How do you support your staff that have to face these kind of challenges and unknown situations day in and on a regular basis?
Yeah, like I was saying, it's difficult for officers. A lot of them often want to put on a brave face, and they want to not be able to show that, I'm tough.
I'm a police person.
Yeah, I'm tough. I can handle this. This is part of my job. This is who I am. So we've worked hard, I think, for the last, specifically more so in the last 3-4 years, to really be able to offer them resources to say, it's okay to say, you know what, I need help. I'm not coping with this. This has been a tough call. I'm not doing okay, and I need some help. So we've created within our own service a peer support group. So we have both sworn and civilian officers, civilian members that have come forward as part of the group with some specific training, and then people have the option. So you have probably 12 people on the list that people are comfortable speaking to and say, you know what, you understand, you work here, I just need somebody to talk to. We've also created a peer support coordinator, really who looks after what we offer, for example, is yoga for first responders. So once a week, they have the opportunity to, within the service, somebody comes in and can take advantage of that as a de-stressor, relaxing exercise. I think it's been important for us as a service too to really showcase that we take this very seriously. You've seen across the province, many suicides, for example, within policing agencies, and we can't see our members going to that extent where they're not reaching out and getting the help they can before it's too late. So we want to really make sure that those services are provided and really showcase to people that we are people, we are human, and it's important to have that, to personalize us really, and that we're more than a uniform, and take that in consideration when you're dealing with the police. And I would hope people would, sorry to cut you off, but just one last point. I think it's important when people see us, say hi. It's okay. You see us on the street and saying, nice to see you. Hope you're having a good day, and thanks for what you do. Just that simple.
So I've been asking different folks through the Facebook page and just that I bump into about, okay, I've got the chief coming on, what should I ask?
Yeah.
And a couple of people have talked about the police that aren't in their cars, that are walking around the neighborhood. My massage therapist said, they just pop in every so often and it's nice. Not that we're dealing with any problems, we're developing a relationship.
Yep.
Where's that at in terms of the number of officers that have that kind of steady beat in a certain neighborhood, that get to know and develop those relationships,
Right.
and people are seen more
Right.
as regular people then, because I've got to know you a little bit.
Right. So we
How many
have
officers?
we have 6 beat officers. That's
many?
it. 6.
6.
6.
So that's one more than what I've got.
Yeah, so it's not a large number. So they're dedicated beat officers that walk the beat, have interactions on foot day to day with businesses, people that they interact with, and it's great. Could we use more? Sure, but you can appreciate that we need to be able to put our resources where we need to, depending on what's occurring. We have right now a very big influx of out-of-town gangs, drugs, guns, very lucrative market for those gang members. And I need to be able to juggle what I have for resources to answer, the current needs in the community and the current concerns. So those are the prioritizing difficulties that come about when you're saying, okay, we need to do this, but there's also other areas that need our attention. So sometimes it's difficult decisions to make, is where do we shift in order to meet those demands.
Well, I want my magic wand and say, gangs be gone.
Yeah, I wish I had one. It would be that easy.
Another question for me really is around reconciliation in our community. This has been a big thing in the news for a number of years. I know there's been public apologies and statements, which I think are definitely headed in the right direction. How do we deal with really systemic racism, which I think exists in our community? I know it's inside me too, that I try to struggle to overcome that. How do you do that on an institutional level within the police department?
Well, I think it's acknowledging as an institution that systemic racism exists. That's kind of one of the biggest hurdles for most institutions, is to come to the realization that within our own institution that barriers exist and that they've been there. I think, though, it's really important as a community to tackle this together. You can't ask the police, single-handedly just, looking at us to say this is it and please fix it.
You're responsible. Make it all happen.
No, exactly. There has to be a kind of a community effort that we all come forward, kind of on the same page, and work together towards that reconciliation. I think that's the most important part. We are definitely at the table. We are an active partner, a willing partner, and we understand kind of our role and what we need to do in terms of next steps. But again, we can't do it alone, and we hope that we will have kind of the community with us working towards that reconciliation.
So do you have a kind of a strategic plan or anything to deal with that issue? has kind of outcomes you're striving for?
Well, there's two things. One, the recommendations, for example, from the OIPRD report kind of give us guidelines. There's 44 recommendations that kind of give us next steps, that things that we need to look at and work towards. But we also have a new board currently, and one of our next steps with the board is to look at a new business plan, and that kind of gives us strategic decision, direction and next steps. So that's really sitting with the new board to formulate that plan and what is it going to look like for the 3 years, what are our priorities, and what are we going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we're down to our last minute or so on the show. Any other challenges you want to highlight and kind of put on the table that you're facing and how you might tackle them?
Well, I mean, we talked a little bit in terms of, you know, the recommendations. We've had a few, you know, we've had also the inquest in the last few years. I think what we've been able to kind of showcase is that we as a service have been wanting to think outside the box, really, wanting to show that we're at the table, that we've made some really big partnerships with a lot of community agencies, and I think that's the most important. We're not an island, and I encourage people to continue kind of supporting us, but also kind of joining us in those steps. We don't want to just be reactive. We want to be proactive as a service and work with our community.
So if people want to find out more information, what's the best way to do that?
I would say right now to go on our website, thornbaypolice.ca. We have a lot of different tabs that give you some updates on what we're currently doing. There's a lot of information there for people if they're interested in criminal record searches, for example, or extra duty. There's all kinds of good resources there that they can utilize.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
We're out of time. I sure appreciate it. And please stay safe and look forward to seeing you again.